So welcome back to another episode of Feedback. I'm your man, Nick Alfano, and we are going to dissect this concept called the feedback loop today. So the actual root word of this podcast, one of my favorite words on the planet Earth, definitely my favorite F word. I want to show you guys today how it's actually showing up in your world and why it is so important to learn how to process feedback. A lot of the frameworks I've developed and taught a lot of men, I work with male entrepreneurs, and they really are applicable to everybody, but a lot of times when you hear me build this out, because I typically only work with actually men, you might hear it from that lens. So for any female listeners, not sure that an apology is in order, but I will just frame that up now. You will still get value from this, so lean in, subscribe, do the things, check the box. I don't even know what they do. Today's episode, the feedback loop. What if I told you that your entire life is a series of loops and that 95% of those loops that you're stuck in, you're not even aware that you're stuck in? So we're going to get into this concept called raising the bar. And as I say this, sometimes it's a little difficult not to have some slides behind me or like some presentation information. I'll see if my guys can. I'm sure they can. I'll drop maybe at least one picture to certain episodes that have a framework that I'd like you guys to try to take home with you. So this will be one of those. Where am I going with this? Raising the bar. Bar is going to be an acronym: belief, action, result. So I want you to imagine for a second a loop, right? And it's got 3 arrows, and on those arrows are the words belief right at the top. It's going to form a complete circle here with these 3 arrows all feeding each other. So it starts with belief. The next arrow is action. The final arrow is result, all forming a perfect circle. This is called the feedback loop. You've probably heard it called the self-fulfilling prophecy. There's another variation of this called the Pygmalion effect. We don't have to go too far down that rabbit hole today, but just understand that this literally controls every single thing you do. And when I talk about the fact that 95% of it we're unaware of, is because a lot of those beliefs are not the stories you're maybe telling yourself right now as you're listening to this, or the talk track that's in your head every day. They're the beliefs that you're not even aware, but they're actually the stronger of the belief system that you have. It's called your core beliefs, which are rooted at a subconscious level. And your subconscious runs 95% of your life. And if we unpack that word for a second, subconscious, it means below, subconscious awareness. So it literally means below your awareness. So a lot of people are stuck, and most of these loops are actually self-sabotaging. So that's another name for this. When it's a loop that doesn't serve you, it's called the self-sabotaging loop. And so you are constantly stuck in this pattern or this loop that doesn't serve you, and most of the time it actually has you stuck. And so when you learn how to play this game and raise the bar, basically identify what the core belief is that is causing the action, that is then causing the result. If you're unhappy with that result, well, we have to change the belief. We have to change it at a core level. So again, I want you to visualize this because it's a little difficult without the slides. BAR, belief, action, result. Let's run through a quick scenario on how this is probably showing up. Let's use a simple one. And for the record, as you start to listen to this podcast, if you're new to the game, a lot of times I'm going to dance in these 4 F's called faith, family, fitness, or finance. We work very hard to build what we call the 4-dimensional man. We'll have future episodes on that, or I'm sure they're out there already. But essentially, I'm always going to give examples from those areas because those are, in my opinion, the only areas that make up the complete man, the complete life. So fitness is an easy one because it's granular, because you can measure it, and because a lot of people have fitness targets that they can relate to. So let's say your belief is genetically, I have a slow metabolism. Genetically, it's harder for me to get in shape. Genetically, my family, they're all overweight. And so I must be genetically predisposed. I have a genetic predisposition to not being able to get as lean as that dude in the gym, to not be able to get a 6-pack, to not be able to even get my body fat to a degree that, I like what I see in the mirror. So that is your belief. As a result of that belief, you take what action? Now, there's always action, or sometimes inaction or inconsistent action. So let's play the game. The belief is I'm predisposed to being heavy. My whole family's heavy. The girls are 250, the guys are 300. Everybody in my family, when I look around, so there must be a genetic issue with my ability to get, shredded, bro. Cool story. As a result, I am inconsistent at the gym, or maybe I don't go to the gym altogether. Or maybe I go to the gym and it's very lackluster. Like my performance once I hit the gym is very much go through the motions. I've never really put 120% into this game called fitness. And when I have, I've done it for 3, 4, 6, 8, 12-day sprints. And when I don't see the results, right? So let's play this game. Let's play it all the way through. The belief, predisposed to poor genetics, which makes it hard or impossible to get in shape. The actions I take are pretty half-ass. I don't stick to anything long enough. I avoid the gym. And if I do go, I don't go consistent. If I go consistent, when I'm there, I don't perform at the level of the guys that have the body that I want. The result is I look very much the same. So this is the scariest part about this game. Again, we've got belief, action, result. Now the result is I haven't really changed my physical appearance. I don't look like the guy that I set out to look like. So this is the scariest part. That little gap between result and belief is where everything changes or everything stays the same. So if you draw this out in your head, belief, action, result, we just went through it all. The result is nothing changes for you. Your body doesn't change. You're not happy when you look in the mirror. You definitely don't look like the dude at the gym that you're aspiring to look like or the guy on Instagram or in the magazine. So right there in that moment, you have an opportunity. Now, most people miss this opportunity, which is why I want you to really lean into this podcast, because there's a concept out there, and you've heard this before. It's called confirmation bias. And confirmation bias is what has you stuck, because when the results are, I didn't get the body I wanted, I didn't move the needle much, I'm not in shape, then it reaffirms, it cements even further as a core belief into your subconscious that you are genetically predisposed to not being able to get in shape. So that loop never changes because you are actually creating conditions to reaffirm your original belief, which is already a belief at your core, a core belief, aka a subconscious belief. So it's already rooted, it's already strong. And because it leads to an action that doesn't actually get you the result that you want, it keeps you the same, you get to literally jump up and down and say, see, I knew it. I knew it, I'm not that guy. Don't have his genetics. I do the reps, I do the sets, I eat the broccoli, I weigh my food, I track the macros, I get the protein shakes. I've even tried TRT, I've tried growth. I've done everything. I'm not capable of that. And the more you believe that, the more you get the results. And the more you get the results, the more you believe that. That is the feedback loop. And it's dangerous. And here's one thing I'll tell you about the confirmation bias. Human beings are the only organism on this planet Earth that would rather be right than actually experience a win. Experience change, experience growth. You'll see this sometimes in, what's the example I use often? Battered women, right? So like battered women syndrome. As an outsider looking in, we just can't even stomach. We definitely can't wrap our head around the fact that that lady is still staying with that dude who continues to put hands on her. True or not true? Like we don't understand. Like for us, it's like, hey, just leave the dude, right? It's a no-brainer. Don't ever let a dude put hands on you. Get out of that situation. You deserve better, so on and so forth. Yet, a lot of women, and it's actually a higher percentage than those that don't, will stay with that man. This harkens back to the sentence, and maybe you've heard this before, the devil I know is far less frightening than the devil I don't. And so part of your subconscious, where all these core beliefs are housed, is it has one major job. It doesn't care if you have the abs. It doesn't care if you're in an awesome relationship. It doesn't care if you get the house, the car, you have a bunch of followers, bro. Like it doesn't care. It's trying to keep you safe, alive, and safe. And the safer you are, the higher the chance you stay alive. That's its primary concern. So what happens is, although it's a risky situation and the guy continues to put hands on the female, her subconscious is saying, hey, this is predictable. Like it is predictable, and therefore it is safe because you haven't died yet. So my job is to keep you safe enough to keep you alive. And so far, this loop that you're stuck in hasn't killed us. I don't foresee it killing us. Stay here, because if we step out and we try relationship number 2, 3, 4, 5, there's a chance we could die. There's a chance that relationship could be less safe than this one. And so let's try to unpack, and I don't want to go too far with this because I don't want to try to climb into the female brain and pretend that I understand where this woman sits, but I can give you the neuroscience behind this. At a subconscious level, she is wrestling with worthiness issues. You'll often hear it called daddy issues. All that to say, at some point, she actually believes that she's supposed to get hit once in a while. She believes that something about the way she's showing up should lead to that dude putting hands on her. And that is the normal course of things. She knows his launch sequence, yet she still pushes boop, bop, beep, bop, boop, boop, boop. Those are the cool sound effects. She still pushes his launch sequence every time. And I'm not giving dude an out. What I'm saying is she knows if I do X, Y, and Z, I get hit upside the head. But she continues to do X, Y, Z to get hit upside the head because she believes that's what she's worth. She believes all dudes hit women that get out of line. Somewhere along the line, she's been programmed for that behavior. And it scares the shit out of her to imagine a life where she steps out of that and tries something different. Now, not all women, of course, right? Some people escape this trap. But I think I beat that to death enough for you to recognize that, unfortunately, most people aren't even aware. Like if I was to approach an individual that was stuck in that relationship and try to break down what's actually happening at a biological cellular level in her brain and why she's stuck, she would push back 6 ways from Sunday. Again, her subconscious wants to keep her there. And the craziest thing about your subconscious wanting to keep you trapped by keeping you stuck in these core beliefs, which we're going to get to in a second, aren't even your beliefs. The reason it keeps you there again is because it fears change. And it's going to keep you there in a way where it's not threatening. Meaning, your subconscious is never going to directly fight with you. It's never going to directly cause friction. It's going to convince you like a salesman. It's going to have the gift to gab because it has to be with you for life. It's part of you. It is you. And so to change the belief is very difficult, but I want to get into real quick what I alluded to a second ago. Belief, action, result. Obviously, the game here is to change the belief, because if you can change the belief, you can change the way you show up, right? What actions you take or do not take. If you change the actions you take, you can get a result that's a little different. And you've heard this before, if you want different, you have to do different. Well, it starts with believing different. So where am I going when I say you've got a set of really, really deeply rooted core beliefs that are not even yours? Your subconscious runs 95% of your life. Your subconscious was written from age 0 to 7. It was then duplicated from 7 to 14, and again every 7 years. And as you watch this video, like I'm 43, I've got 6 copy and pastes of a subconscious program that I didn't write that was written for me. Now I'm going to hone in those years 0 to 7 and 7 to 14, so stick with me for a second. 0 to 7, you're in a brainwave state that's called theta. Theta is also referred to as the hypnosis state. If you've ever heard of the inventor Thomas Edison, he had, and there's various different versions of this count, but they're all over 100. So my count, I think it was 117 U.S. patents. So he's patented 100 different inventions or parts to an invention that led to an invention, etc. And he did this because he figured out the game. He figured out how to access his subconscious mind, because that is where all your genius, even as you listen to this, your genius is there. The answers you need are there. Every single answer to the problems that you think that you have are sitting in your brain right now. Now, you're receiving this data right now, whether you're watching the video on YouTube or you're Apple or Spotify and you're just doing audio. Like, you're receiving this in what's called beta, B-E-T-A, which is a conscious state. Right? It doesn't access the subconscious. You're receiving this through your PFC, your prefrontal cortex. Essentially, I'll get to that part in a second. You're not even going to remember half the shit that I say on this podcast, unfortunately. If it was that easy, I would just drop some cool shit and everyone would pick it up and run and everybody would win. So let's go back to 0 to 7. You're in a theta brainwave state. Theta, you are in a hypnotic state, and you've seen this before. And if you have children, lean in on this one because it's important. 0 to 7 and 7 to 14, they call those the formative years for a reason, because the subconscious mind, the bulk of that person's mind, personality, brain, how they show up, all of that is being formed from 0 to 14. 0 to 7, theta, downloading speeds, downloading data, downloading your environment at 337% the rate that you're downloading this podcast. The problem with the child 0 to 7 downloading at 337% is the conscious brain has yet to be formed. The conscious mind has yet to be formed. So they have no filter. So everything just gets in. Now, this is why a child from 0 to 7 can learn 2 classical instruments and 3 languages before you and I could probably finish a book as we sit in beta. And you know this. You've seen this, right? You were a child once. Now, a lot of us don't remember a lot that happened from 0 to 3, 0 to 4, 0 to 7. But the reality is you are in pure download mode. Now, this is when your core beliefs are set. This is when your programming, your patterns, like everything is being set at that moment. And think about from 0 to 7, like who had control over your environment? Where were you downloading this data? Where were you sourcing the data? Obviously, we've got parents. We've got school, right? Pre-K and kindergarten start creeping in at 4, 5, 6. We've got sports. If you're a psycho dad like me and put all your kids in sports when they were 4 years old. So you've got coaches now, right? You've got religion. So depending on, right, your religion and how early you started that, if you started going to church on Sundays, you started Sunday school, etc., you basically have, crazy aunt and uncles. You've started to develop some friends, but again, you don't have a conscious filter yet, so you're not really filtering out what circle you're going to run with. 0 to 7, everything gets in. Those same beliefs that you were given from 0 to 7, if you're a first generation entrepreneur, your parents likely instilled some version of scarcity in you. So you're the first person to step out of the 9 to 5, the blue collar, go get a trade, go to college, be safe, and go and be risky and start a company. Like you're probably hearing it, again, 6 ways from Sunday from everybody in your family on that's not the path, that's scary, that's a huge risk, I wouldn't do that if I were you, 401k, right? Like all the things. Where I'm going with this is you have certain beliefs right now that are ingrained in you that you didn't choose, and at a subconscious level, they're below your awareness. They are actually dictating the actions that you take or don't take, basically how you show up in this world. As a result of those actions, you're getting results. Now, I want you to pause for a minute and think, do I have the life that I set out to build? Now, some of you might be young listening to this, 20s, 25s, etc. You're still building. Some of you are 40, 45, 50, 55. A lot of us look up at a certain year or after a certain number of years of the same old thing and realize that, like, not only have I not built the life that I set out to build, but nothing's really changing for me. Every New Year's, I jump up and down with the fitness target to get some abs. Every New Year's, I jump up and down and say, I'm going to start that thing that I'm passionate about, and I'm going to learn how to monetize it in a way that allows me to leave my W-2. Or I'm already a business owner, but I'm stuck at this ceiling, and we're doing about $2 million in revenue, but my OpEx is so high, I'm barely getting by. I can barely make payroll. I don't really own a business. My business owns me. I'm frustrated. This is not what I signed up for. Nothing's changing. Every January comes around. I set the resolution. I pull up the bank account. It's the same. My relationship with my wife is the same. My relationship with my children, same. My relationship with myself, same. My relationship with God, same. And it's a result of these beliefs that were programmed in you from 0 to 7 and then from 7 to 14. So let's move on real quick. 7 to 14, you move on from theta into alpha, ALPHA, and essentially it's in the 200 range in terms of how fast you're downloading. There's no clear data on that number, but basically at this point you are starting to form your PFC, your conscious brain. Your prefrontal cortex is actually starting to, like, physically, biologically, at a cellular level, you're starting to develop this bad boy. So at least you can decipher what data gets in, but you're still highly, highly impressionable. You are still very much in download mode, but now you've got a little bit of a filter. So if you think 7 to 14, this is when you were kind of clicking up, right? Middle school, bro. Like, do I want to roll with this crew or this crew? Like, you kind of figure out who you are. You probably went through several identity crises. Some of us continued past 14 with this as we got into high school. But the reality is 7 to 14, you are still forming your subconscious mind at a high level, and now you're starting to add the conscious mind to it. So why am I jumping around with the 7-year thing? This is a fun stat to remember, and you can look this up. Every 7 years, over the course of those 7 years, the cellular regeneration that happens in the human body, your body has pretty much built out or completed a new cycle of cells. So just think of it this way. Every 7 years, the body produces a new set of cells. And so that program from 0 to 7 gets copy and pasted from 7 to 14. Still in download mode in alpha, theta to alpha, so we've got some minor tweaks. Built a conscious brain, we've got some minor tweaks, we've got some control. Once we hit 14, you're in beta, B-E-T-A, and you're in beta for the rest of your life. Like, that's why I can confidently say anybody listening to this, unless I've got some really young kids, You're listening to this in beta, and beta is fight or flight, get by, pay the bills, month to month, figure it out, put out the fire. It's very hard to, you can receive data, but to make it sticky, you got to push it through the conscious mind to the subconscious mind. So once you hit beta, it is very difficult to actually change your programming. Now, there's only 2 ways to change your program: to change the belief that changes the action that changes the results. 2 ways. Write these down, memorize them, jump up and down, come and read this, listen to this part of the podcast. Repetition and accessing theta. That's it. Reps on reps on reps on reps on reps. So after 14, can you reprogram? Can you change these core beliefs? Can you start to show up different? Can you change? Yes. Is it very difficult and 90% of people don't? Matter of fact, it's over 99, which is why they call them the 1%ers. Yes, you can make the changes necessary. There's a book out there called Project 369, where they basically have you create a series of affirmations and statements, and then you say them 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, 9 times in the evening. The goal there is to get as many reps as possible so you can say that belief enough, because it's one thing to say it. It's one thing, for example, I trigger a lot of my guys when I say, look, you don't actually believe that you're worth $5 million. So you're never going to get there. And that hits their ego and their pride. Like, come on, man, I know what I'm worth. I'm worth $5 million. Easy. Cool, bro. I'm telling you right now, you can say it all day. You can scream it. You can write the affirmation down. You can get the Post-it and put it on the mirror, brush your teeth, and just yell in the mirror. I don't care what you tell me right now. That's you saying it. There's a big difference in are you displaying it. Like if I hang out with you for a week, I can tell real fast what you really want in this world. See, the crazy thing about this game and how we raise the bar is the only way to raise it is to change the belief. Because those series of beliefs have dictated every action you've ever taken. And therefore, every result that you have right now, you believe in those results. You have actually called that in. If you pull up your bank account right now, you're not happy, you called that number into your life. The end. If you're not happy with, let me talk to my dudes real quick, the consistency or lack of consistency with your sex life, she doesn't initiate, you called that into your life. You have a belief which is causing you to show up a certain way, which is causing a result that you don't want. You say you don't want, but your actions, because of your beliefs, say otherwise. This is the game. This is 100% why I started my business called The Program and why I started this podcast called Feedback. You have to understand the feedback loop. If the feedback is, I'm not getting the life that I want, I'm not getting the results that I want, well, the only way to change is I have to show up different. I have to show up with different actions. Well, the only way to change my actions is to change my beliefs. The only way to change my beliefs is to do it at a subconscious level, not a conscious level. This podcast isn't going to do it for you. I'm sorry. I wish it would. Go reading a book is not going to do it for you. I'll give you 1,000,000 books. Matter of fact, I'm about to give you a really powerful couple of hacks on how to start changing your belief. And another thing I'm going to point out, and this might be frustrating off the rip, my aim with the solo episodes of this podcast, the guest ones are going to be cool. You're going to meet some cool people. We're going to kind of unpack how they became, where they became in this journey, and you're going to get some revelations. The solos, I'm adamant. I am obsessed with giving you every single thing that you need to change the game, just to prove my thesis. And my thesis is this game is not the business plan. It's the businessman. Do you need a solid plan, a solid strategy, someone who's been there before you and can show you how to avoid those landmines or collapse time? Of course. Let's call it 20%. But 80% of this game is the businessman. Like anything I say on this podcast or anything you've ever heard, anybody, and you felt all cool and you wrote it down or you pressed pause or you played it again, I'm telling you right now, so I call that a bookmark boner. Like I speak at a lot of events. I've been to a lot of events. I've spent a lot of money on personal development. And I know the game. Someone says something cool from the stage, you get all hype and you write it down. You never even open that page for the rest of your life. I had a professor in law school. His name was Thomas Hudspeth. He taught torts my freshman year in law school. And he said, you can't review something you haven't viewed. And that hit hard for me because we're all guilty of this. You're going to go to a thing. You might even stop and listen to this and write some shit down. You're going to go to the next mastermind, seminar, networking event, and you're going to write something cool. Right? And you're going to, maybe you fold the page. Maybe you write it twice. Maybe you underline it. Maybe you write it in all caps. Maybe you put an asterisk next to it. You have a system. But it means nothing because you're not going to go back and view it. And if you haven't viewed it, then you can't review it. And unless you're going to actually take that and turning it into an action item and then use repetition to reprogram, it's not going to do it for you. So, I don't want to get all down on this podcast. I just want you to understand there's a game to be played, and the only way to change your belief that changes the action, that changes the result, because the results are literally all around you right now. Your life, as you sit here and listen to this podcast episode, your life is a printout of your program. You called that bank account into your life. You called that relationship into your life. You called that relationship with the kids, that relationship with yourself. You called stand in the mirror right now. Strip down to your boxers. Ready, set, go. Yeah, make it weird. You called that into your life. That's your truth. That's your programming. Pressure exposes your program. Truth exposes your program. Don't be ashamed or feel guilty about your program. You didn't write the damn thing. Now, I'm definitely not out here to create a bunch of victims because I can't stand that shit. But it's important to understand you didn't write the majority of that programming. But now, as you learn how to play the game, you have a responsibility, a duty to yourself, to future generations, to your wife, to your babies, to those you constantly interact with, whether it's business partners or just this world in general. Like you have a duty to reprogram. You have a duty to show up different because you have to change those actions to change the results. So what are some different ways? I made a few notes right here, which is why you keep seeing me jump over to my computer because I only teach 2 or 3 of these, but I wanted to give you a couple more for the sake of this call. And I don't want you to have to join my membership to get some cool things. So I'm going to give you some different ways to break the feedback loop. Number 1 is definitely the most practical. Make sure I'm recording. I did that once. There's a book out there by Byron Katie. It's called Loving What Is. Byron Katie is a lady from Bakersfield, California. I don't remember the drug of choice, but she's a former addict who woke up one day and received a download, and she built this framework that she calls doing the work. And I'm going to give you the quick little run through on what that looks like, and then encourage you to go check out her book. Like I don't know her personally. I don't get anything from this. I'm just trying to add value to you guys. We have a version of this that we have modified for the major beliefs that are holding men back in general, because again, I work with men, but I'm going to give you the premise right now. So the first way to really, really change your beliefs is to challenge them. How do you challenge your belief? You have to ask yourself this really simple framework of questions, which again was developed by Byron Katie. The book is called Loving What Is. And it goes like this. Judge your neighbor, write it down, ask 4 questions, turn it around. That's her entire book right there. I just gave you the cheat code. So judge your neighbor is not as weird as it sounds. Sometimes you're judging yourself. This is one tool you can't really use on yourself out of the gate. But the reality is your program or the way that you're showing up as a result of your beliefs oftentimes exposes itself when you're interacting with someone else. So I work with men. So let's just say you're having a fight with your wife and you're triggered, right? She starts to initiate your launch sequence, and hopefully you don't hit her over the head because then I'll have to come find you. But what I'm saying is you have a series of beliefs around whatever she did that caused you to lose your shit, right? And you could have maybe verbally assaulted her. Maybe you just threw a tantrum like a little wiener. Whatever it is, you're starting to realize now you're getting better at this game. I don't really like the way that I showed up in that altercation, and it definitely didn't give me the result I want. So you basically start to go down this path, and I'm just going to give you the 4 questions, and then you can take the initial part of that framework and do some homework on your own. So again, Byron Katie's exact framework is judge your neighbor, write it down, ask 4 questions, turn it around. I'm going to give you the 4 questions. This is going to hurt your feelings because it is the easiest 4 questions ever, but no one does it. No one seriously slows down and asks themselves these questions, especially live in real time in that moment when they're triggered. So the questions are, is it true? So you're challenging the belief at this point. Is whatever I'm saying about my wife, let's use this one. So let's say your wife won't let you spend a certain amount of money. Right? So you have a story in your head because you're triggered that why on earth should I even have to come to you to ask to spend $1,000? This is ridiculous. You have such a scarcity mindset, or you don't ever let me do anything nice for myself. You've got these stories that are running through your head. So the story is, I shouldn't have to ask you for shit. I'm the man. I'm gonna go buy $1,000. Spend some $1,000 on my golf clubs, right? So she triggers you. Is it true that your wife is being scarcity with money? Is she's being tight with the purse? Is that she's trying to control you? Is it true your wife doesn't want you to have nice things? You start to challenge these questions. So let's say my wife doesn't want me to have nice shit. Is it true? Now, of course, in the moment, you're heated, you're cranky, you're triggered, you're going to say yes. Next question, you ready? Number 2, is it absolutely true? Absolute. For all my numbers guys out there, and even my science nerds like myself, like absolute zero, if you remember that concept, there is no way out of absolute zero. Absolute. So you ask yourself, is it absolutely true? Now, this is designed to pull you out of that state of super triggered, get your heart rate down, maybe your blood from boiling, and be like, my initial answer was, yeah, it's true. My second one was, for a lot of guys, they're still triggered. Yeah, of course it's true. This is the 20th time this has happened. I spent $1,000 on the credit card to get something for my golf clubs, and she threw a fit. She doesn't want me to have nice shit. Okay, ready for question number 3? How do I feel when I tell myself that thought? So let's run them again. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? How do I feel when I tell myself that thought? So you run through that. How do I feel right now? Well, I'm frustrated. I feel unappreciated. I'm angry. Just run through some emotions. Try and get them down to one word. But the reality is you're going to go through that and then mainly to realize I don't like how I feel right now, right? There's a result happening. If I hold on to this belief that my wife doesn't want me to have nice things, I'm going to show up in a way that is combative, causes friction. Maybe I yell at her. Maybe I sulk in the corner. Whatever it is, there's going to be action that follows that hardcore belief. When I go through that action, the result is I feel a certain way. I feel like shit because I yelled at my wife. I feel inadequate because my wife doesn't want me to have nice things. Let's assume you're still believing your own bullshit story, right? Question number 4. So is it true? Is it absolutely true? How do I feel when I tell myself that thought? And here's a powerful one. Who would I be without that thought? That's a weird one. This is a weird framework if you've never done it before. This is called doing the work. We call it running the circuit. I've got about 14, 15 questions that all combine with those 4 that allow you to like literally in real time go, holy shit. Holy shit, that story that I've been married to for so long, that belief, that core belief that I've been attached to so long doesn't serve me. And holy shit, number 2, I have the power to change that story. See, that's the difference. You have the power to attach yourself to whatever version of the story you want, even if it doesn't make sense for other people. So where am I going with this? The story is my wife doesn't want me to have nice things for me. Is it true? Sure, I'm cranky. It must be true. Is it really true? Nah, she loves me. There's a million other situations in life where she's maybe surprised me with something where, I've bought nice things for myself and it made sense. Maybe there's other factors involved as you go down this. Maybe money's tight right now and you shouldn't be spending $1,000. Maybe that credit card has a higher interest rate and all she really wanted you to do was put it on the Amex and earn the points. Who knows? But you got to go down this rabbit hole to play this game. So is it true? Is it absolutely true? How do I feel? Well, when I tell myself my wife doesn't want to have nice things for me, I kind of start questioning, am I worthy of nice things? Is my relationship in a place where my wife supports me? Like, I don't really like the questions that follow when I feel how I feel right now. Cool. Who would I be without this thought? Well, if I didn't think that my wife didn't want me to have nice things, I might show up different for her. I might show up in a completely different manner that actually allows me to build the life that I say that I want, which is a more deeper connection with my wife. So I beat that to death. That's actually a whole separate episode. I'm going to teach you guys how to run a circuit, but I want you to understand that's probably the most practical way to change your beliefs is just to ask yourself a series of questions live in the moment if you can. Some of you guys have got some deep-rooted beliefs that keep coming up. You're starting to become aware of them, so you can actually go off on your own and just start to unpack those walking through either Byron Katie's version, or you could hit me up and or wait for the episode to drop on the circuit, and I'll walk you through how we do it. But it is one of the most powerful things in the world. The other ones I'm going to give you are take small steps and really stop and give yourself credit for small wins. So, for example, if we go back to the fitness one, and I won't go too crazy on these so I don't take too much of your time. If we go back to the fitness one and the gentleman that has the belief that genetically he's predisposed to like higher body fat or he can't get jacked or get abs, bro, when he goes to the gym for a week or two and he's not seeing the results that he wants, he instantly goes right back to the fact that it must be a genetic thing because look at the rest of my family. I knew it. I was right. I'm done with the gym. It's just not for me. I'll accept the fact that I don't have the body type to be jacked and shredded, bro. In reality, one of the hacks that you can use and he could use in that moment is to just give himself some credit for some small wins. Man, I did 7 days straight in the gym. Man, I got my heart rate to 155 beats per minute for 27 minutes on the treadmill 5 days in a row. Man, I was able to stick with my macros. These are such awesome wins. I'm just going to keep stacking these wins, and then I'm going to look up in 12, 13, 14 weeks and then see what my body looks like. You see, he's more attached to the result than he is to the process. And as much as you hear that and people preach that, the best way to stay attached to the process, right, is to appreciate the small little hints of progress. So you have to absolutely love the process. They say more than the progress, but I'm encouraging you to divide it down into small chunks and baby wins. Give yourself some grace. There are dopamine hits along the way that will keep you on the path towards the big target. So that's number 2. All right, number 3, the third way that you can play this game to really change your belief, and this is one you've heard before as well, you need to get out of your comfort zone. Like you're doing this right if you're taking action that is extremely uncomfortable because you're challenging your belief. So one of my favorite sayings, it's on the back of a lot of our shirts at the program, I probably have to say it a few hundred times a day, believe it or not, is show up different. And so you have to take new actions. You have to show up on the scene different. You have to show up in that argument with your wife different. You have to show up at the gym different. And it's going to feel weird because it's different. And your subconscious is going to fight you because it's foreign, it's change, it hates change because change equals potentially danger. Danger isn't safe. Danger could lead to death. So you have to stay in this area. You have to stretch and stretch outside of your comfort zone. You know you're doing it right. When you're taking an action that is foreign to you or uncomfortable, you are now challenging your core beliefs. And the fourth way is through repetition. I said this earlier, possibly more than once. You could change your subconscious mind or reprogram your mind by accessing theta in a safe way and then actually not doing damage while you're in there. So we could talk about that on another episode. But one of the most common ways, especially for most of you who are 14 and older and you're in a beta state, is reps. You know, there's technically a third way, so I'll touch on that for the sake of, I have a loop in my head I need to close right now, and that is accessing gamma. So there's another brainwave state. There's technically 5 that run your whole life. Gamma is almost impossible to access unless you're the Incredible Hulk. You reach gamma if you have been in a very tragic situation or where heightened alert was necessary. So a car accident, right? It's a huge one. Car accident, if you've ever been in an accident and everything almost like slows down like the Matrix, like you can almost like count the shattered glass as it runs by your head. You were likely in gamma at that moment, and this is kind of where PTSD stems from for soldiers. And again, you can have PTSD from a car accident. Because you access a particular part of your subconscious in that moment, because your body was forced to survive, you can recall that on demand, and a lot of times it shows up, again, in a way that doesn't serve you. So it could be the smell of burnt something that represents the airbag. Again, for a soldier on 4th of July, the fireworks could take him back to a state where he was in gamma, and it's so heavily rooted in his subconscious, he'll have a visceral reaction. He may, his palms may get sweaty. His heart rate may elevate just when the fireworks go off for the 4th. So that's gamma. That's another way to heavily affect your subconscious mind, which, again, we can get into another episode. So for the sake of this episode, I want you just to remember the rule of repetition. So Project 369, again, I don't know the lady who created it. You can go check it out, where you basically create your beliefs, your new beliefs that you're trying to embed in the subconscious, and you read them 3, 6, and 9 times a day, morning, noon, and night. And that's going to be the best way to do this game. And I'm trying to think if we could drive down the theta one on this one. Yeah, on this episode, we won't have time to get into the theta madness. So let's just recap so I can send you on your way. You are sitting right now in a beta brainwave state processing this data. You have a set of beliefs that are not as easy to recognize as you think because they are housed in the subconscious, which means below awareness. Those beliefs are constantly allowing you to or causing you to take action or sometimes not take action. And those actions are leading to a series of results, which essentially, if you look around right now, are your life. Like your life is a series of results, which is a series of the actions that you took as a result of a series of beliefs that you have embedded in your programming. Now, we all want different results. If you're listening to this, you're likely searching for new something, new fitness results, new family results, finance results, faith. Like there's just something going on in your life. You want different. Well, if you want different, you have to do different. And it starts with the belief. And the only way to change a belief is at a subconscious level. So I'd love to tell you this podcast solved it all for you. Hopefully you got some cool nuggets. We talked about Byron Katie's Loving What Is and how to like really, really challenge that story. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? How do I feel when I tell myself that thought? Who would I be without that thought? We talked about reps. We talked about getting a little more granular and really respecting the progress and the process and not so much being obsessed with the end game, giving yourself, credit for the micro wins and starting to stack those. What else did we talk about? Yeah, all of those things. So this is the feedback loop. This is, again, my favorite word. To me, I like to bring awareness to this subject before we really dive into all that we're going to do here on the solo episodes of this podcast, because when you learn how to recognize the bar, then you can learn how to raise the bar. And when you raise the bar, you change the results. And everybody here is looking to level up, I assume, or at least reinforce, right? We do have a certain circuit we run our guys through where we reinforce certain patterns of behavior, like a gratitude circuit. So if you're not trying to raise the bar across all levels of your life, maybe you're just trying to reinforce patterns of behavior so you can make sure they're sticky. My name's Nick Alfano. This has been Feedback. I hope you enjoyed the episode. My action item for you, because I'm always going to drop one, is to think of an area in your life where maybe there's a belief that you start to see as you listen to this that's holding you back. And then ask yourself, how can you challenge that belief? How can you change that belief? Because follow it down the road of that belief that I can think about right now as I listen to this, or maybe when I hang up this episode, is leading to an action or lack of action that is then causing a result. And I'm not too thrilled with that result. And as much as that result reinforces that belief, and I love feeling warm and fuzzy, confirmation bias, I love feeling safe, I love being right, I don't really love where I'm at in a particular area of my life. So what is that belief? How can I challenge it? How can I change it?